אני הייתי במינסוטה יותר מ-30 שנה. השליח הראשי ראו היום הלילה בווידאו של הרב מוישה פלר. מוישה פלר הוא יליד אמריקאי, אבל הוא איש תמים חסיד אמיתי. הוא אומר כל פעם שאם מבקשים לו ממנו לדבר איפה שהוא הולך. באיזה שפה שהם רוצים. הוא אומר, כל פעם שהוא מתחיל לדבר בלושן הקודש, יש לו לושן הקודש אמריקאי אמיתי, כמו מודרן. והוא מתחיל את הדרשה שלו ככה. תודה, ליתן לי הזכות למלא שליחות הרבי, שליחות של חסידות. אחד העניינים העיקריים של חסידות הוא לפעול שמחה אצל יהודים. הוא מתחיל ואומר, כשאני פותח את פי לדבר בלושן הקודש, הכל שמחים. אבל אין לי הווילדקייט כזה, ולכן אני אדבר בשפה שאני יותר מורגל. פייסנו בכבוד אכסניה. We were here for a couple of days. We were here for Hashem for Simcha and spending some time in Argentina. I think it's my second or third time here. I must say that you have to give a great yashikoyach to the shluchim, to the moistus. Every time we come, you see Baruch Hashem, it's growing and growing, and the moistus is getting only bigger and better. And of course, it's the schus from the Mishaleach and the koiches of the shluchim that they put in here. Is Ashreichem and God will schusnem. How did everybody clap? I'm speaking in English. אמרתי לרב שיכול להיות שרב מנדי לוי זה אחיין שלי. הוא יכול לדבר לשון הרע עליי, אני לא יכול להיות בגבו. I don't know why everybody was clapping. Everybody understands English? Okay. The Friedrich ever writes in the letter, when he writes about Yud Beis Tammuz, he writes, these nekudas, Likvoya Leyoy Misvadus, to set up the day of Yud Beis Tammuz for farbrangen, V'hisoyrus L'chizuk HaTorah V'Hayadus V'chol Asar V'Asar L'fi Inyonah. So there's the Sikha from the Rebbe, where the Rebbe explains what does the Friedrich Rebbe mean when he says L'chizuk HaTorah V'Hayadus. It seems to be a koiful lashon. There's no Torah without Yadus. There's no Yadus without Torah. And the point that Rebbe makes is, and actually the Chassan actually said this Sikha today in the Shul, or yesterday, that the Rebbe's point is L'chizuk HaTorah V'Hayadus is a Mensch darf wissen, alle davon wissen, als die Stock in Yadus an Torah. Torah is what makes Yadus. Torah on Yadus, Yadus on Torah is nicht Yadus. It has to be Chakuk Beliba. Chakuk Belibeinu as Torah, what personifies what a Yid is. A Yid is personified with his Limidat Torah Chassidus. And that has to be Chakuk B'Meicha. And now we know the whole, anybody who learned any Sikha this week's Parsha, Chukas HaTorah, Oisius Chakika, that's a Chakuk B'Liba Shal Yisrael, as that Torah is what makes Yadus. On Torah is the Shtok in Yadus. This uplay, this Chassidish uplay, I'll share with you a couple of stories. Everybody knows, many of you have gone through 770, Baruch Hashem as a bacher, and the Minau of 770 was Rabbi David Raskin, Olav Shalom. So the story happened once that when it was still in Bedford Adin, Yeshiva was still in Bedford Adin, there was a bacher, a young bacher. They say the story says that it happens to be that was Rav Moshe Parsi, that he told Rabbi David Raskin, I need your shus to go home. Why do I need reshus to go home? I don't feel good. So I want to go home. So Rabbi David Rassi says, you want to go home? Sure, come with me. Takes a taxi and brings him to 770. So Moshe replies, they say to Moshe replies, so the Bachar says to David, I don't feel good, I want to go home. So David says to the Bachar, home is 770. So he says, I feel this good. I want to go to sleep. I need my house. I want my parents home to sleep. Oh, you want to go to your parents' house to sleep? Fine, go to your parents' house. Our home is 770. That is an uplay, a Hasidic uplay. There's a story with a Mendel Futavas. A Mendel Futavas, everybody knows, was the Baal Mesiras Nefesh, and there's many, many stories that he said, that he learned as he was in jail. And one of the stories he shared with somebody was that when he was in the jail, his shchenim in the jail weren't the most Hasidic people, right? They were Habel Bulvanis. And one time they were sitting there in Zchuisker at the Hartzen, and one of the Bulvanis says, "Oh, what's the time? What's going to be with me?" Oh, and one by one, each one was complaining. They used to be somebody special, and now they're all stuck in jail. And one by one, every one of those Bulvanis came and, oh, what's the time? Oh, they walked. So they turned to the Mendel and said, "Move, what's the there?" So the Mendel says these words: Ich bin gewähnt a Chassid und ich bin geblieben a Chassid. He has nothing to lose. He has nothing to fetch about. He was a Chassid before he went in to prison, and as he's in prison, he's a Chassid. So he's not fetching like Lahavdil was going Mark fetching. How do we have the koyach? I mean, obviously, your baby Gimel Tamuz is the story of the Friedrich Rebbe. I don't know if you know, I'm never going to be a Rebbe. I don't know if anybody here is ever going to be a Rebbe. So if we're not going to be a Rebbe, how does the story of your baby Gimel Tamuz really affect us? And where do we have the koyach to act like this? Aim al achasid, vayter achasid. The haim is 770. This seems to be. We're not talking about people who are Meshichmoy and Milo on a different planet. We're talking about that's expected from us how to behave. So that every another sikha is mevayer that the nest of Yubei Gimel Tamuz in a certain way is the highest level of nest. You look in Shulchan Aruch, says the Rebbe, there's Gedolim and Nisim. There's a bracha you have to make when a nest happened to you. Shasui nest. Then there's a nest, a bracha you have to make, even if it didn't happen to you, if it happened to your father, whether you were born then or not born then, whatever. It's also your offspring of your father, of your parent. You make a bracha. Then there is a bracha you make when it happened to your Rebbe, to a Rebbe. And the Rebbe says this is Milmayla Lamata. Nesla Atzmois for sure demands a bracha. Nesla Aviv is a level away. Nesla Rabbi, you don't even feel so much. But then the Rebbe says, a Nes, when Nasi Hadar is even greater than Nesla Atzmois. He's not only your father, not only your Rebbe, but he's even greater than the Nesla Atzmois. And the Rebbe quotes this week's Rashi. And the Rebbe, it was nice that we heard it before in the Sikha. The Rebbe says in this week's Rashi, the Pasuk says, Vayishlach Yisrael Malachim El Sicher Melech HaMoidi Leimar. And Rashi asks instead of the Psukim, it wasn't, one place it says Yisrael Malachim, another place it says it was Moshe Rabbeinu who did it. So it says Rashi, Haksuvim Halalu Tzrichim Zeh Lezeh Zeh Noel V'Zeh Peseyach Shemoshe Hu Yisrael V'Yisrael Hey Moshe. You hear the words? We all know these quotes that Rebbe would say, Anasi Hu Al-Kol, Anasi Hu Al-Kol. But over here, the Rashi says that there's another system that Rebbe would explain. It's much more than Anasi Hu Al-Kol. Moshe Hu Yisrael, Yisrael Hu Moshe. Yisrael Hu Moshe. When Moshe gets left out of Beis HaYisurim, and one of the sikhs that ever says, when somebody's never stuck in mud, when you pull out the head, the feet come along. So if Rahman al-Islam, the Friedrich Rebbe, was stuck in Beis HaYisurim, and he's the Rosh B'nai Yisrael, by him being pulled out, the Ikvasa, I get pulled out too. We are the same Kaimah Hashlema. So v'chein, the nest to the Nasi Hadar is my nest. It's me. Me and my brother, Reb Moshe, we had an uncle. Many of you might have known him, Reb Yosef Rosenfeld, Olav Shalom. Reb Yosef Rosenfeld was the Menal of Yeshivas Ola Torah for about, I think, over 50 years, 60 years. What you know Ola Torah looks like now is many ways in his schus. So, Reb Yosef Rosenfeld, believe it or not, with all his milas, I think he was born in America. He was a very Chassidish man. He made a lot of very Chassidish impressions on anybody who learned Ola Torah. But one time, he used to daven every morning Shacharis, he used to daven in Lefferts Avenue. Tes Adar, he's davening there like, part of the 100 people that are davening there. And the Chazan continues to say Tachnun. So Rabbi Yosef Rosenfeld gets a clap and says, no Tachnun. Somebody, the Chazan looks at him and says, not to say Menhagim, he doesn't say Tes Adar, like a nice young L'chaim, Schnapps and herring, but this one is Tachnun. So Rabbi Yosef Rosenfeld says, if not for Tes Adar, the Friedrich could ever coming to America, I would be in public school. So I personally feel the yontif. A couple of years later, about a year ago, he just a couple months before he passed away, actually, I reminded him of this story. And anybody who knows Rabbi Yosef Rosenfeld, he was very animatic, very graphic, and he was very straightforward to the point. So I said, Rabbi Yosef, you remember the story? So he says, I would have been in public school. I would have been in drugs. I would have been in drugs if not for the Friedrich. I was an American boy, born in whatever, and if not for the Friedrich could ever establishing Chadorim and Chitmin, I would have been in the streets. So that's when a nest happens to the Nasi Adar, it's not happening like my brother said in this Kodim Benasim, Pesach, Shmuas, Sukkot. It actually happens to you. You know why you're sitting here in a farbrangen? Because the Friedrich Rebbe was taken out of prison. I have a challenge that I like to do to a lot of times to my Talmudim. We became accustomed to so many verter or pisgomim that the Rebbe uses or Chassidus uses, and you might not even know it's a pasuk. Like Chelik Elikam Imal. Does everybody know it's a pasuk niyah? The Rebbe makes a whole big fuss that is the Tzugalek Mamish, but Chelik Elikam Imal is a pasuk. Your Futsu Meinesecha Chutza is a pasuk. So I'm going to read you a pasuk. How many people could finish off this pasuk? It's a pasuk in Yeshaya. Zeh Yoymar LaHashem Ani. V'zeh Yikra B'Shem Yaakov. V'zeh Yichtoy Yodei LaHashem. Anybody know this pasuk? There's going to be amongst the Yidden different groups. Zeh Yoymar LaHashem Ani. And I'll give you a hint. Rashi says those are the tzaddikim. The tzaddikim say LaHashem Ani. Tzaddik Kulei Kodesh. V'zeh Yikra B'Shem Yaakov. Zok Rashi. Those are the Kanim B'nei B'Shoim. They're going to say, we're not going in our father's path. We are going to be called B'Shem Yaakov. V'zeh Yichtoy Yodei LaHashem. Those are the Balik Shuvah. Anybody know who the last three words of the pasuk? U'B'Shem Yisrael Yuchuna. The quote of the Friedrich Rebbe says, and the Rebbe to Eingekritz in our brain, that that Yud-based Tamuz is a yontiv. Kol asher b'shem Yisrael Yechuna is a pasuk Yeshaya. And when you look at the pasuk, we covered all levels of the Yidden. We covered tzaddikim gemurim zeh yomer LaHashem Ani. We covered Tanim b'nei b'shoyim by zeh yikodim b'shem Yaakov. We covered Balik Shuvah by zeh yichtav yodei LaHashem. What's with b'shem Yisrael Yechuna? So Rashi says from Avis Rav Nassim, Elu HaGedim. Elu HaGedim. So when I hear that, it deflates the whole excitement of Hashem Yisrael, Hashem B'Shem Yisrael Yechuna. We always learn Hashem B'Shem Yisrael Yechuna means never the person Garnish has no connection to Yiddishkeit. He's only called Yehudi. He only called Yisrael. He has the Yiddish nose. But the other Rav Nosson says Elul HaGedim. What does it mean here? So Rabbi said, I have a time limit, but I want to share with you a short pirush from the Rebbe on a Gemara. And that it's funny, very seldom you see this. The Rebbe says, I want to interpret this pirush Ba'avodas Hashem, and the Rebbe links to zwei Wörter. Ba'Hashem Yechaber. I'm going to try to explain this. And Avodas Hashem says the Rebbe, Ba'Hashem Yechaber. Okay, verstehe what that means. The Gemara says in Masechta Yuma, Mi Shemei Salav Mapoilis. God forbid, a Mapoilis falls. That's a din in Hilchos Shabbos. Are you allowed to take away the rumble, the Mapoilis in Shabbos? So the Gemara says, Safik Husham, Safik Einisham. I don't know if he's even there. Safik Chai, Safik Meis. Even if he's there, I don't know if he's alive. Safik Yisrael, Safik Nachri. All I see is a Mapoilis down. Zok the Gemara, Mefachim Olav Sagal, B'Shabbos. Even 3 triple sveikas, you're allowed to be Mefakech to Gal. Rabbi said, listen to the chat from the Rebbe in Avodas Hashem. The Rebbe says like this: the Mapoilis is the world was created in such a way that the world has to stand. It's every mitzvah we do. It's a koima achashlema. Rahman al-Islam, we do something wrong. We whip out one brick or something, and the koima achas, the building, the wall, becomes Rahman al-Islam Mapoilis. Mapoilis fell down. A Yid is never falling. He's not doing exactly what it is. Safik Husham, Safik Hu'enisham. Beautiful shot from the Rebbe. A person, every Yid has to be involved in Gashmis. Since the Meraglim wanted to be in the Midbar, but the Eibush says to the Meraglim, no, this is not the place. You're going into Eretz Yisrael, you're talking Shver Schmitzen. You're going to have to be involved in Gashmis. Aber wo in Gashmis, wo liegst du? You're going to be in Gashmis. You have to make a parnasa. Aber in was liegst du? What are you involved? Safik Husham. Safik Einisham. Listen to that shot. Even if you're there, Mr. Darden, over your mind is like the Chassidim that they got stuck painting and making Einay Novada. It could be that the Mapoilis, the weakening of the Mapoilis is not so bad. Why? Because it didn't weaken it so bad. He's Einay Sham, it's not a Araynaton in the Gashmis. So a guy like that, Zichadat begin. But Safik Sham, it's a suffix, maybe he became Mushka in Titus and Chumrius. Go a step further, says the Rebbe, Safik Chai, Safik Meis. Rahman al-Islam, he's not only Mushka in Titus and Chumrius, he is never abgeschnitten. He's not a Begeder Meis, Vishoyim B'chayim Kruyim Meisim. And then goes the third level, Rahman al-Islam, as they needed to gefallen, that's Safik Nachri. Safik Nachri, says the Rebbe, called Banekar lo yechel by Nisnaknu Meisav Lavim Shebesamayim. He's totally lost. A Nekar, a guy. What the Rebbe says, Nisnaknu Meisav. So no matter which level you are, the thing is Mefachim Olav Asagol B'Shgal B'Shabbos. Because it's all a triple Safik, you're allowed to be Mechal Shabbos for any one of these years. Types to that, what is Mefachim Asagal? What kind of Lashon is Mefachim? Mefachim the Lashon Pikeyach. Aran Gisn Chachma. Make the person smart. Teach him Torah. Show him the light. As long as there is the smallest hope, you got to make him smart by teaching him Torah. I don't know why this verse from the Rebbe, which is the Rishimas, I don't know why I never heard before. But the Rebbe writes a word like this, a Meshuggah word. Afal pi shechato Yisraelu. You want to hear what the Rebbe says? V types the Rebbe, Afal pi shechato Yisraelu. Der who is Yisrael. The who he really is, he's a Yisrael. Das heißt, als Begoloi is nicht gut. Aber der who seiner is a Yisrael. Das heißt, als der Nistar Venelem by jeder Eden is a Gesundheit. What's really hidden by every Yid is healthy, is strong. The who, the Pneumius, is a Yid good. And the Rebbe says, even the one that fell to the Suffolk Nachri, of course the one that's Ein Sham, no. The one that's amazed, no, it's the Chakshuva. But even the Snakru Ma'isel Avim Sheba Shemayim, Mefakim Leim Asakal. Rabbi said, this is what the Friedrich Rebbe did. This is what the Rebbe did to make sure that we have shluchim all over the world, being mefitz the Eirach Chassidus, the Chachmas Chassidus, the wisdom of Ein Oid Milvado. There's a story, and I'll finish with two short stories. There's a story I read, Pinya Korf said that his father was one of the chayvrim by the Friedrich Rebbe. So one time, there was a time they had to go into Chazer the Maimer by the Friedrich Rebbe. She goes into the Friedrich Rebbe, him and maybe some other chayvrim too, and in the middle of their discussing the Maimer, the Friedrich Rebbe gets a phone call. So the Friedrich Rebbe steps out, answers the phone, and comes back in. And the Friedrich Rebbe says, "From Gan Eden areinem Blatter." And then he smiles and he says to them, "Und zurück in Gan Eden." And now let's continue back to the Maimer. By the Friedrich Rebbe, he wanted to infuse to these Talmidim that when you're learning the Maimer, this is Gan Eden. You have Gan Eden in the Olam Hazeh. Okay, for a couple of moments he took a phone call from Gan Eden to Blatter about Zurich Arayin in Gan Eden. And then there's a story I once read, and I think this is a story that we should finish off with the Koyach of Mesiras Nefesh, the Koyach as a Chassid Blaidam of a Chassid. It was during the war of Yimach Shemot with the Nazis. So there was somebody that said that he was taken into prison with some other groups of Russians, whatever, non-Jews. And this guy was a frum Yid, and he sees that every night one of his cell members, the same barrack or whatever, wakes up in the middle of the night and quietly takes a bag from under his bed, goes to a corner, gets dressed, and 2 minutes later, he takes off what he put in and puts it back in the bag, goes back to sleep. So after seeing this a couple of times, he turns to his cellmate, he says, "My eye, what's going on?" He says, "I want to tell you something. I'm not like all you here in this room," he says. "I am a Russian general. They caught me as a Russian general, and they threw me into the same cell as you guys. I have the bag of the clothing of a Russian general, the suit. Every night, when everybody sleeps, when it's quiet, I put on that suit, and I salute to remember that I am a general. Rabbi said, we are generals, don't forget."